this is how the DEA operates. And I think one of the things that I've heard, and I get it, right? In cannabis, we have PTSD. In my head, it's always Charlie Brown and Lucy with the football when Charlie Brown thinks he's going to pick the ball, and Lucy pulls it away and he falls on his ass. That's happened to us for the last decade in cannabis, right? So most people are waiting for that football moment. The difference here, and I think it's important, right? There's a lot of what might happens, and then there's what has actually happened.
Hey everyone, welcome to episode 142 of High Spirits. I'm Ben Larson,
And I'm Anna Ray Grabstein.
and it is June 23rd, 2026, and we have an incredible episode for you today. We have Graham Farrar, president of Glasshouse, coming on to talk about California weed, uplisting, Schedule 3, all the things, global cannabis. Really excited to have this conversation. It's very timely, especially Anna Ray, after hearing your tales of Ignite It Chicago and how everyone is thinking that things are moving faster than they are. But before we get there, how was the train ride? Was it worth it?
Yeah, if you follow me on LinkedIn, you can see pictures of my train ride from California to Chicago. It was amazing. Yeah, it was great. I think that the takeaway for all of us in business and in leadership is that sometimes we need to slow down to speed up, and doing something the slow way gives us time to think and process and creatively prepare professionally. So I would recommend that anyone do it, and especially if you can do it for work. It's highly productive.
Oh, I'm digging it. I'm digging it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I bet the family was excited to have you back.
The family was, but I'll tell you, my son is obsessed with trains now. He has aspirations of model trains and all kinds of things. So we'll see what it turns into. And you got big family stuff coming this week too. The baby's on the way, huh?
I do. Yeah, it was a special Father's Day weekend this past weekend. Happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there. It was, yeah, I had a nice day. Actually, spent most of the day to myself, which is a funny way to, I guess, celebrate Father's Day. But took myself on a really long bike ride and tried to completely empty the tank. And when I do that, I find it's a really great way to get perspective, clear the mind, and just come at everything fresh. And um, it gave me that moment of pause to really think about like what's ahead, not just for the company, but also, as you pointed out, our new baby that's on the way at the end of the week. So yeah.
Yeah. Big stuff for sure. And big stuff all around. I mean, we've been doing this show now for 3 years, and we usually do news updates, and there've been times when it's felt like there isn't a lot of news over the past 12 months, but that is not the case anymore. And instead of doing the news update, I think that we just bring on Graham and we start talking about all the things that are going on in the industry, and as it relates to him and his role at Glasshouse will be a great way to dive into all of this. So let me
Yeah.
cue him up. We're going to bring on Graham Farrar. Like you said, he's the president and co-founder of Glasshouse Brands. Also, he has one of the coolest titles in all of cannabis as the chief cannabis officer. I'm not really sure what that is, but I think I want to be that. Um, Glasshouse has been around since 2015, and they have the largest legal greenhouse in the world, I think, down in Carpinteria, California. So really excited to welcome Graham here today. Thanks for joining us.
Chief cannabis officer is what you get to do when you start a cannabis company and can make up your title. So I thought it was a cool one as well. And if there's something I'd love to be, it's somewhere between chief cannabis and chief music officer. So I'll put that one here, and hope to do some music stuff at some point as well to put together with it.
Ooh, and another music head. You guys are prolific in the industry. What's the band of choice?
Oh, that's a good question. I like all music. I think I would say I like any music that's good. It doesn't matter if it's techno or gospel. If it's good, it's good. I have no real music making skills, other than a bit of hobby DJing, which is nice. It's kind of like the equivalent of taking a photo versus painting a picture. I'm definitely not going to paint a picture, but I can take some good photos, and I can curate and play other people's great music. So I was on the board of directors for the Santa Barbara Bowl, which is the local music venue in Santa Barbara, for about 18 years, and helped them build that out to an absolutely fantastic place to see a concert. It's my favorite spot on the West Coast outdoors up in the canyon in Santa Barbara. So, like I said, I'm never going to make music, but I can play music, and I certainly appreciate music, and maybe even a little bit more after smoking a joint as well. So, music, food, and weed. My
Man, chief cannabis officer gets to spend time in Santa Barbara and Carpinteria. Like that, you have designed a good life, my friend.
no complaints. No one needs to feel sorry for me.
Well, so let's get into it. The big news is that you and Glass House to deconsolidate the dual use business of Glass House and apply for the New York Stock Exchange uplisting that Trulieve just recently went through. So why don't you explain that to us in plain English? What exactly are you splitting off? Isn't everything that you guys do adult use?
Yeah, sure. So maybe I'll take one step back and just give the 30 seconds on, I'll call it the historical Glass House at this point, and then I can talk about what we changed on the go forward basis. So historically, Glass House was started about 10 years ago. We're 100% California. Don't have operations anywhere else. We've always been kind of building for the idea that cannabis was going to be normalized and destigmatized, which means you do in cannabis, which you do in every other CPG product. And one of the things that makes the United States of America the United States and makes it, I think, the greatest country on earth is because what we do is we take the best that anybody has and we share it with everybody. So if the best oranges are in Florida, you grow them in Florida, we eat them in California. If the best strawberries are in California, we grow them in California, you eat them in New Jersey, wine from Napa Valley, and cannabis from California. So we have been historically vertically integrated in California. All of our farms, we have 3 farms here, all California, Southern California based. We operated 10 retail stores as well as an MSA on an 11th. We have 3 brands, Glass House Farms, Allswell. Those are the most consumed cannabis brands in the state of California. We also have Plus Gummies, which is typically top 5, top 10 edible brand in California. We've got manufacturing and we've got distro. So historically vertically integrated, meaning we do everything from the seed all the way to selling it to the consumer into their ashtray. What we did recently is what they call deconsolidation, which means that we broke off our retail operations from the rest of it into its own separate company. We remain a majority owner of that, but do not actually manage or control it. And it's no longer in our financials. And the reason for that is in California, the only place that there's truly distinction between adult use and medicinal is at retail. So all of our farms are medicinally licensed. All of our processing, all of our manufacturing, and all of our distro is medicinally licensed cannabis. The only place where you see adult use is at retail. Retail is no longer part of Glass House, meaning that Glass House, the public company, is 100% medicinal. And per the final order that was signed by the federal government in April, medicinal cannabis, state licensed medicinal cannabis, is now covered under Schedule 3, which means it's no longer federally illegal, which means if you're a company that is only federally legal cannabis, then there's no reason that you can't be on the U.S. Stock Exchange, NYSE, or NASDAQ. And so after doing that, now that we are a fully federally legal medicinal cannabis company, we asked the NYSE, we could be listed on their exchange instead of an exchange up in Canada, which is where all the other U.S. cannabis companies are. And the indications are positive. So we're waiting for the final, but we hope to see that happen pretty soon here.
Wow. There's so many questions that you just brought to mind. I don't even know where to start, but like I think this whole presumption, or not, I shouldn't, that word is loaded, but the medical only cannabis company in California, and a little bit of this narrative it kind of, it gets to a lot of the confusion in the space. I see a lot of like talking heads, a lot of lawyers, debating about what is California going to do? How is California going to help? We're at Vertosa, an operator mid supply chain. We actually did adapt our license to be medical only and have also submitted for a DEA license. And so Um, yeah, it makes me very happy to hear about your confidence, and I'm curious as to what are you potentially hearing that others in California need to hear, or what can help build their confidence?
So, and I should have mentioned in there, that we also did all the DEA stuff. So we have submitted all of it's called the bulk drug manufacturer's license. They actually, DEA also created a portal specifically for dispensaries. So we should get submitted those, prior to the deconsolidation as well. But, the most interesting or exciting part that's most aligned with our strategy, is the bulk drug manufacturer form. It's called the Form 225. So based on being state medicinally licensed for our forms of manufacturing, we submitted under the new drug codes that they created. And I think getting to your question, I think that's important in two ways. One is the bulk drug manufacturer form 225 is not, that is what Tylenol, codeine, testosterone. I think it even covers things like cocaine and morphine. Um, it's been around for a long time. This is how the DEA operates. And I think one of the things that I've heard, and I get it, right? In cannabis, we have PTSD. In my head, it's always Charlie Brown and Lucy with the football when Charlie Brown thinks he's going to pick the ball, and Lucy pulls it away and he falls on his ass. That's happened to us for the last decade in cannabis, right? So most people are waiting for that football moment. The difference here, and I think it's important, right? There's a lot of what might happens, and then there's what has actually happened. And in this case, I'd say for the first time, what has actually happened is that the federal government, the attorney general, has signed an order that rescheduled. It's a done deal. It's happened past tense. It has rescheduled medicinal cannabis to Schedule 3. It is now federally legal, right? So that is a put it in the history books thing, not a bite app, and not they're reviewing it, not there's a hearing done, right?
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
so based on that, the next question is, does it mean it, right? And there's a lot of ways where that could happen and not mean anything, right? And I got to give this administration a lot of credit, because they've done a bunch of things and they're very smart and they show a very good understanding, and I think they show intention. They could reschedule things to Schedule 3 and then say, great, you need to get an FDA approval. That would effectively mean it means nothing, right? At least today.
Hmm.
The reason for that is an FDA approval is going to take you 5 years if you're lucky, and it's going to cost you $50 million. So cannabis could be rescheduled, require an FDA approval, and nothing would actually change. They didn't do that though. They put in a very important set of words which said FDA approved or state medicinally licensed, right? And that means all of us who have state licenses that are medicinal are in, right? Like we don't need an FDA approved sidestep $50 million in another half a decade. So the next question is anyone going to do it, right? So that could happen. And then the DEA or DOJ, I'll call it kill it with bureaucracy. And it's actually one of the things that was most worrying to me, because you can fight against a no, you can't fight against, it's harder to fight against a non-answer, right? So then the
Hmm.
question is anyone going to do it? The answer to that appears to be yes. And the reason I say that is you take this existing Schedule 3 infrastructure that exists, and the DEA has proactively added new drug codes to that form, right? So you have existing infrastructure, you don't need to build this. The DEA has made proactive changes though to submit it. And I know that because the day after this was announced, I was on the phone with California, making sure all of our licenses were medicinal. And the next day I was trying to submit this 225 form and finding that I couldn't quite figure out how to fill it out because they hadn't yet updated the drug codes. A few days later, they updated the drug codes. We submitted the form. And I think that's important because it shows proactive changes happening. The next thing I would say that's a good sign is the DEA has then followed up and asked for further information on our application, right? So they had a rule from the federal government that if you were submitted within the first 60 days, they had a maximum of 60 days to process the application. Fully prepared for them to wait 59 days or whatever it would be to do anything. They didn't. 4 days later, they were asking questions. Just paperwork, nothing big. Uh,
Hmm.
but now we've also seen that they're starting to do inspections at dispensaries, right? So 2 data points, or maybe 3, proactively added drug codes, ask for follow-up information, starting to do inspections, tells me that they're working on this and that their boss, President Trump, wants this done and they're going to deliver on it, right? So I would say at this point, I believe that they are working towards that 6-month window to process these applications. Another point that tells you they want this to happen is it's called pendency. While they're reviewing your application, once you've submitted it, during the review period, you can operate as if it's approved. Once again, something you don't see. Like, this is not normal bureaucracy. This is saying, submit the application, get it in within the window. We promise we'll get it done in 6 months. And while you wait for us, you can go ahead and operate as if we've said yes.
So
What we're
few
used to, but
comments.
that's what's happening.
Few comments on what you're saying, and you're right. It is really unique. This getting to operate as if is not something that the DEA usually does. And for those out there that are listening to this and thinking about if they should still get their application in this first 60-day window, I think the whispers in the industry are that it really is worth it, because even though they have extended the application period indefinitely, you won't get that priority processing in 6 months if you don't get it in. I think it's by the 26th,
Yes.
which is just
If they
in
do it,
3
wait,
days.
priority to do it.
You got
should
3
ask.
days.
Yeah, you got 3 days. And the reason is that if you don't get priority processing, the legacy of how long it has taken the DEA to generally process applications like this is often years. So it really does make a difference to get it in this first go round. And so, Graham, you made the clear argument of why you guys feel strategically that up supply chain from retail counts as medicinal. The license is medicinal. The product doesn't become adult use or medicinal until the point of sale at retail, when somebody either purchases it with a medical card or chooses to purchase it just because they're over 21. So I hear that and I get that. I think that where I want to take the conversation then, with that as the foundation, is about what that means about interstate commerce. You guys have had this hypothesis about California cannabis being the future of the industry.
Uh-huh.
You talked about the language in the executive order about FDA approved or medicinally legal in the state. Do you think that state medicinally legal is enough to open the door for you guys to start having real conversations with out-of-state medical partners to bring Glass House product into other markets, let's say a Pennsylvania or a Florida, that are still medical only?
So I will say yes to the latter half, because we have started having real conversations about it. The conversation is not the same as being able to do it compliantly. So I think that's the more interesting part of the answer. I think in a federal level, the answer to your question is yes. I think there are 3 things that are required of them. So that's only one of them. The 3 things that I think are required, and I'll call it to another jurisdiction. And by that, I'm encompassing other states as well as other countries. So I think you need 3 things. You need the federal government, who's now said yes. You need the shipping state to say yes. In our case, that would be California. And then you need the recipient jurisdiction to say yes, in which case it could be Florida, Texas, or Germany, right? So we have one of the 3 green lights. California needs to give guidance on how you would move product, by definition, to be compliant with your state license, which is a requirement at the federal level. Is in metric, and the current regulations say that you're only to work with other licensed operators. What they need to do, at least in my opinion, is expand the definition of licensed operators to not just DCC licensed operators, but DCC and federally licensed operators, right? So, for example, once you have your application for your bulk drug manufacturer in with the DEA, you now have what's called the DEA control number. So we have DEA control numbers. Ben's got a DEA control number. I think that the state of California consider the federal government license a valid license. If they make that change, then they would say in metric, rather than your other metric licensee or your other DCC licensee number, put in the DEA control number of who you're transferring this to, manifest it over. We need to know where it's going. Now it's with the DEA, and the same controls that used for testosterone or morphine, for example, right? Like, what's good enough for those, it's good enough for cannabis, would now govern how you transfer that product around. So that would be the second green light. And I think the state of California wants this. I would reference the letter from Clint Kellum, who's the head of the Department of Cannabis Control in California, sent a letter to the federal government advocating for the full rescheduling of cannabis. So I think they want to see all of this move to Schedule 3 and not just medicinal. And there is no reason that they do not want California operators to be able to export the cannabis that the rest of the world want. No, any different than they don't want, winemakers in Napa to not be stuck within the state. So fully expect them to support that. The third thing you need is the recipient jurisdiction. So if you're in Germany, they're already doing it. So the answer is yes there. If you look at the states, I think you're going to be a spectrum of answers. You're going to get a state that has an industry that they want to protect, who will try and say no. I think they will lose because of the Dormant Commerce Clause. You will have some states who don't have the industry but want it, and they don't want to have to regulate the entire supply chain. I think they'll enthusiastically say yes. And you might see some states that currently have hemp that they wish had a bit more regulation on it. And this might be a good way for them to replace that supply chain with a tested and regulated supply chain without taking their citizens access away that they've got used to.
Well, so let's kind of double click on the Dormant Commerce Clause and some of your peers in the public cannabis space who are also the largest cannabis companies in the world, who have invested tremendous amount of resources and dollars in building cultivation assets in places that are not very good to farm. And they have kind of a disproportionate reason to try to protect those expensive cultivation assets in places that are too cold to grow outside, too cold to grow with greenhouses. And I believe that they are going to try to make sure that those assets are protected as best as they can and get in the way of interstate commerce. And it sounds to me like from talking to lawyers that really to poke a hole in it, it's going to take somebody that is willing to bring a lawsuit um, against one of these states that's trying to stop it. And I'm wondering if that's going to be you guys, and if you guys are going to be willing to poke the bear with the other MSOs that are trying to protect their state cultivation assets and block out interstate commerce.
Sure. So I'm not inherently a litigious person. That said, I am happy to fight for the consumer. And I think in this case, the consumer would be the loser if free trade is not allowed in cannabis like it is in every single other product in this country. Right. And I would reference a few things. One is the truth always happens, and the truth is cannabis shouldn't be locked up in states. The second is the consumers get what they want, and what they want is California cannabis. And the third is nature always wins. And it makes more environmental sense to grow cannabis where cannabis likes to grow than put artificial regulations around it and burn coal in Massachusetts to grow it in a warehouse, replacing the sunshine. So I think all those things are eventualities. None of them tell you the exact timing, but I promise that all of them will happen. And I would also reference the fact that we are now a Schedule 3. There is no Schedule 3 drug that is not sold in all 50 states, produced in any state, and shipped via interstate commerce. So you would be making cannabis a one of one of every product in the universe that is limited to a specific state. So
Well,
I
I
have
think
no
we
doubt-
already have that special designation. I said I think we already have that special designation of a one of one, unfortunately.
Except for we also carried the designation that we're the only Schedule 1 product drug that was tolerated, right? So we were living, and the only reason that the Dormant Commerce Clause has not been brought to bear already, the sole leg that it has had to stand on was the question of, does the Dormant Commerce Clause apply to a Schedule 1 federally illegal product? That is no longer the case. The Dormant Commerce Clause absolutely applies to federally legal products. So now you get into the realities of this, right? There is no doubt that some states are going to be resistant to this. They will be able to slow this down. But I would ask people to think through the reality of what that means. Like, let's pick Florida. Florida's got a market. Let's say Florida doesn't want California cannabis. Think about what happens. Florida says we don't want California cannabis. What does California do? Maybe we don't want Florida orange. Okay. Maybe we don't want cherries from Michigan, right? California is the fourth largest economy in the world. Who wants to lose California's market? you say you don't want our products, what are the odds that that doesn't turn into a trade? International market, that's what happens every day. It's going to happen here.
Mhm.
And then, are you still the United States of America if you are specifically disadvantaging other states relative to one another and fighting internally? I would say that you're not. And I would say you just took away what made America great. So I do not think that that will stand because of cannabis. So I would be willing to bet all my money that the Dormant Commerce Clause eventually puts cannabis from all 50 states in all 50 states, because if it breaks that, then it won't stop there. There's no way that
Mm.
you can make cannabis the unique thing in that sense. So we'll be living in a world of a fractured state and country, and it will suck. So I don't think it's
Yeah.
going to.
And Ray, I'm curious from your perspective because you came back from Chicago singing a tune of like, oh yeah, we're probably only like 12 to 18 months away, which was a lot more, I guess, ambitious or optimistic than I had previously been. I'm curious if you heard anything else in addition to what Graham is saying, um, that would further reinforce that.
I think that I heard optimism that within 12 to 18 months that somebody is going to start trying and that they're going to try to participate in interstate commerce. And instead of necessarily asking for permission, they will deal with whatever comes from it, I
That'd
think
be a very
is what I'm
cannabis thing to
hearing.
do.
And that people are certain folks are ready to push the envelope, and other folks are loudly convinced that it is not possible at all. And that the language around state level medicinal licensing will not hold up, and that the lack of FDA approval for the products will be the thing that will get in the way of interstate
Mm.
commerce. So I'm not really sure. What I will say is I don't want to bet against Graham in this, because I am with you in that I do believe that the future is a more open market, and that it is what will be best for consumers. But I I'm not really sure how it's all gonna pan out in the next 12 to 18 months. And what I'm excited to know from Graham is like, how soon are you guys gonna get started? These conversations that you're having, like, are you thinking that it's Florida or Pennsylvania or Texas, or are you setting your eyes on Germany instead? Do you think that it's simpler to go out of country, as opposed to going out of state first?
Yeah. So two things on that. One is I do think that international will likely happen sooner. Not sure about that, but I'm sure it will happen sooner than some states. The other thing is I would encourage people to think both legally, and for that I would say, look to people, um, like there's some really good dormant commerce clause attorneys out there, not cannabis specific, just in general. I think Mikos, Mikos is a good one. But there's some really good stuff. And the Dormant Commerce Clause has been challenged many times and it has never not prevailed. And I would point out that even in cannabis, the Dormant Commerce Clause has won. There have been many residency requirements that states attempted and lost it under the Dormant Commerce Clause, where they said, hey, you can only apply for a Massachusetts cannabis license if you're a Massachusetts resident. That's not how the US works, right? If we go to Nevada, all of us can go in the casinos, not just Nevada residents. And the same thing, if you want to apply in Massachusetts, you don't have to be a resident in the dorm. They tried and they lost. So the other thing is, think about it practically. Let's say that Texas says, okay, you can import California cannabis, or Tennessee or North Carolina, because they don't have a program, right? What's going to happen when there's California weed in North Carolina to all the surrounding states? If they're going to be California weed in those states, absolutely, right? So it's not the flow is going to be unstoppable, right? Like, and it's not just one lawsuit that's going to happen; it's probably going to be 10, right? So any one of those 10s that gets decided favorably, will become the precedent for the rest of them, right? So maybe Florida has the best strategy, or maybe North Carolina caves early, right? Like as soon as it falls, it's going to fall for all. So again,
I know that one thing that will help unlock it is if the regulators across all the states get together and they standardize quality control standards so
yeah,
that there isn't different standards for pesticide or mold or different things like that in different
Which
states.
yeah.
which
And there's an organization called CANRA, which is the Cannabis Association, National Regulators or
The
something.
regulators.
Yeah, so
Mhm.
there isn't a group that does that. The other thing I would point out too is that there is a way to avoid that, at least in the beginning, which is to ship bulk non-final form packaged product, right? So for example, California has pretty strict standards. I think this most strict, as far as I'm aware, in the nation for pesticides, 102 pesticides now, parts per billion measurements. So you could ship bulk cannabis to Florida, for example, and it could then be tested to Florida standards, which are, if it passes California, it's going to pass Florida, and then be packaged to Florida standards, much different than California, white, black and white packages only, et cetera. So you could ship bulk California cannabis to Florida, test it and package it in California to their state standards, and then put that on the shelves. And you wouldn't actually need true interoperability. You just need to make sure that the product you grew was grown to the highest of all 50 state standards, and be accepted by any of the rest of them. So I think there is a path that could speed that up, at least in the beginning. Ideally, we use the same measurements like we do with alcohol, and you don't need to do state by state stuff, but you certainly could if you need to.
Yeah, so I was recently in Oklahoma City for the CANRA external stakeholder conference, and there were two points of conversation here. One being the dormant commerce clause, and so this was a slide that was presented by Vicente on one of the panels, just talking about how clearly this becomes a case for this, and just that there's like two real like key filters here that um, would not, would not be able to be defended against. And
Yeah.
so, second to this is that the various operators or regulators that are members of CANRA, there is a big push on this committee uh, for harmonizing testing across states. So it does feel like it is working in this direction.
I really don't see. I don't see how it couldn't, because exactly what a state would want to do to protect their industry is exactly what the Dormant Commerce Clause says you can't do. That is the whole point. It has nothing to do. Dormant Commerce Clause does not have anything to do with cannabis. It has to do with commerce, and it says you can't set up rules that make it so someone in Florida doesn't want to buy strawberries from California, and someone in California doesn't want to buy oranges from someone in Florida. That's the whole point. The cannabis application is instant and direct.
Yeah. So
Well,
I
I
want to.
love that you've go ahead, Ben. You go ahead.
No, I was just going to say I kind of want to set aside
Sure.
U.S. interstate for a bit
Me too.
and talk a little bit about the international landscape, because yes, the broader administration has done some good things for progress on the plant this year, it seems, but something that might counteract that on the international stage is just general sentiment towards U.S. companies, right? And I've heard in a number of different ways, certain businesses in certain countries preferring to do business with non-U.S. companies or like Canadian companies. And I'm curious as to what level of differentiation you think we can create for California-based cannabis versus broader U.S. cannabis. Is there a premium that specifically gets applied to California versus the broader U.S.?
Yeah. So, for a question first on your question, the companies that prefer working with non-U.S. companies, what opportunity have they had to work with a U.S. company?
Fair. Yeah, this is all hypothetical.
Yeah.
It seems like they're all playing soccer and we're not allowed to go on the field yet. So,
Football. They're playing football. We're playing
They're
soccer.
playing- yeah, that's
Oh,
right.
fair enough. That's why we need CANRA, so we can standardize the semantics and all call it the same thing.
Mhm.
So I, for a long time, have thought that California cannabis, the appellation map, clearly there are going to be people everywhere, instances that there are going to be some individuals who grow awesome weed, right? Like I don't pretend that California has some monopoly on it, but like you probably don't have a favorite tequila that's not from Mexico. Like you'd probably say, I'd rather have Napa wine than New Jersey wine. Like that you'd probably have champagne from Champagne, France. When it comes to cannabis, 99 people out of 100, if you said you can have the weed from California, you can have the weed from Tennessee, they're going to pick California. Um, I'm happy to say that after going to Berlin, first time I've done an international trip for cannabis, that was mirrored back to me 100 times out of. There is nobody there that we talked to who didn't say, "Oh yeah, we'd be ecstatic to have California cannabis." People ask it for us all the time. People would prefer it. People would pay a premium for it. It'd be a differentiator for us versus our competitors if we were the only ones that had it. So whether it's marketing, whether it's the culture, whether it's the innovation, whether it's the nuance, whether it's the history, whether it's the sunshine, you can say whatever answer you like. But I will say that we did not talk to anybody who was not very positive and worst neutral on California. And I would say, at least relative to us, California also brings the benefit of the best climate, the best growers, the best genetics, the best innovation. So not only can we grow a product that people have a preference for and are willing to pay a premium for, but we can grow it more efficiently, more consistently, and at a higher quality for less money. So even if all that is neutral, I still think that the cannabis we grow here in California and really the West Coast, like I'm not trying to be California arrogant. So the West Coast of the United States, California in particular for us, grows the most best weed, and we can do it for the least amount.
So I think we've been talking a lot about what if interstate commerce, what if global commerce. I think I'd like to come back to California and level set a little bit here about the market dynamics. You guys had a tough year last year with some things that really seemed to circle around some ICE raids and some labor shortages. You guys hit $182 million of revenue in 2025. Your guidance for 2026 is 235 to 245, and that is predicted to come from the California market, which is a market that many of the MSOs participated in a few years ago and exited because they claimed to not be able to compete with mom and pops, which I always thought was a wild thing that Boris Jordan said, because I think the whole point of scale is that you would be able to compete with mom and pop. So something strange was going on in the market at that time. You guys have invested wholly in California and even some big partnerships that have been announced. A strategic partnership with Vireo and Ease to broaden your retail footprint. There's a lot of M&A going on in California. Retail is consolidating very quickly, kind of at the top with 10 operators or so that all have 10 to 25 stores. What do you think is going on in the California market right now? You think it's healthy? You think it's growing? How do you see it?
Yeah, it is interesting, right? And as far as I know, I don't think there's any MSOs left in California. So I know Kira, Truly, Cresco.
I'd say Vireo counts as back or in with Ease.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I guess on the retail side, I don't know if it's actually closed yet. Maybe you're right. I'll give it to you. Anyway, retail. On the operations and cultivation side, I know that Cure was here. I know Cresco was here. I know Truly was here, and I believe they all left.
They all left. Correct.
Yeah. And I do think it's interesting because as of right now, like there's been some thoughts of like, is that going to change? The dynamics haven't actually changed yet. I think when you see some of the things that we've talked about here happen, it's also going to have an impact on California. Maybe sometimes to get that right. Like if Germany is paying $2,000 a pound for weed, people from California can ship weed to Germany. They're going to the point that California is going to be short on weed, and California prices will be impacted upward because people here still are the largest cannabis market on the planet. they're still consuming $4-ish billion of weed a year. And if all of a sudden that supply is going somewhere else, the market economics tells you it's going to, sort itself out. Here for high prices is high prices. Here for low prices is low prices. So there will be changes there. But as of right now, I don't anticipate seeing other MSOs come back into this market. As we talked a little bit about before, I think this year supply is actually a bit thinner in California than it has been in previous years. When we bought our SoCal farm, there was 8,000 cultivation licenses in the state. There's now under 4,000 licenses. So there certainly has been attrition. Part of the reason that we have expanded is because we believe that the most best weed for the least amount of money, which is another way of saying the best value for the consumer, is a good strategy. So as there's been attrition, we, I think, have filled that space to some degree with our expansion. So we continue to love the California market. We have resisted many requests to go into other markets because we think long-term cultivation in California is the right first principles decision. And we anticipate that at some point we are going to be able to give consumers what they want, which is, we talked about, is California cannabis around the planet. So growing here in California has always been our focus. That's the only market we've ever operated in. The rest of the markets look pretty tasty and juicy and appealing. So we look forward to being able to participate in those too. But in the meantime, none of our forecast has anything outside California. Doesn't even have the CBD flower stuff that we're working on in it. It's just our normal business, expanded based on new greenhouses and our greenhouse 2 expansion, which has supplemental lights for the first time, which is pretty cool. So that's our business until our business is more than that, which is closer than ever, but hasn't happened yet.
Yeah.
In the California business, how do you look at the proportion of bulk to CPG? What does that look like for you guys?
Left over. I mean, for me, the tip of the spear is CPG. If I could snap my fingers, everything we grew would be sold in something with one of our brand labels on it. That aren't due in California, but I think get much easier when we get bigger markets. No matter what, though, because of the seasonality of growing with the sun, we are always going to have cultivation capacity that exceeds our brand's needs. And the reason I say that is, if you talk about, say, January versus August, because of the longer days, more intense sun, we're going to grow 40% more in August than we will in January. To be able to supply my brands, I need to have enough supply at the lowest part of the year to give the brands everything they want, which by definition means that the highest part of the year, a brand's consumption is not going to go up just because it's summertime. At the highest times of the year, we're going to have more supply. So I think what you will see from us is we will have our brands, and that will be like our supply chain is the wood behind the tip of the spear, so to speak, for driving CPG. I want to see our brands on the shelves everywhere that tobacco or alcohol are sold, everywhere on the planet. And then we're going to have a few deep relationships with partners who we will work with to make sure they get the weed they want, at the quality that they want, at the volume that they want, the price that they want. And that will be how we merge the seasonal fluctuations so that everybody's happy. So we'll be the Intel inside for a handful of folks, and then we'll make our brands with our supply chain and be able to do that, I think, at a scale that no one else will be able to match.
Yeah, when you talk about your business, Graham, I'm imagining the different levers that you can pull to kind of like just access the market where it is today. And any good operator in the space thinks of it that way. And it's been a really interesting couple of years. We've had this proliferation of hemp. We've had hemp beverages. We've had some side conversations just about what's happening in that space. And then NRA and I have been talking about the regulatory convergence that all this has created. And this year kind of being like, a boiling point for this entire discussion with the federal language that's being passed down for hemp and all that. Crystal ball, where does this all end up? Like how do we imagine, the regulatory landscape looking like for cannabinoids, whether it's hemp or cannabis, and kind of like this federal infrastructure? Is it all Schedule 3 in the future?
I mean, so I'll tell you what I think, which is certainly colored by what I want. I want cannabis to be descheduled. So I want it off the schedule. I can think of no justification to regulate it more tightly than either tobacco or alcohol, neither of which are scheduled at all. I think that, you know, adults should be able to put in their bodies what they want in general. I think we should have testing. I think we should have truth in labeling. I think we should have age gating, but which is what we do with tobacco. I actually, test tobacco and alcohol all that much, certainly not to the standards of cannabis, but nonetheless, I think we should know what we're putting in our bodies. I think it should be labeled. I think it should be restricted to adults. I think if it makes sense, there should be some reasonable level of taxation on it. So I think that's what we should do. Big, big. That said, I think there is an entire lane that makes sense with cannabis that doesn't make sense with alcohol and tobacco, and that's the pharmaceutical. We just saw recently with a cannabis-derived pain drug in Germany that's showing great effect. We've seen it with Epidiolex, which is a cannabis-derived epilepsy drug. We've seen ancillary reports, or limited studies because of the Schedule I nature of cannabis around Parkinson's, PTSD, a bunch of other things. Right? You can see in the data that when you legalize cannabis, opiate deaths go down. I think that's a good thing. You can see Medicare Schedule D, which is where prescription drug has happened, spending go down. I think that's a good thing. Maybe not if you're a pharmaceutical company, but it is if you're a citizen. It is if you're a taxpayer, because that's being paid for by Medicare. Cannabis reduces in the billions the amount of money spent on pharmaceutical drugs when it's available. Cigarette smoking goes down, alcohol consumption goes down. All those things I think are good things. So I do think there is a medical lane for cannabis, but there should also be a descheduled buy at the convenience store lane. Every state, I think I'm accurate when I say this. I think every state stepped through medical on the way to adult use. So I am 0% surprised that the federal government will step through medical on the way to adult use. I think it may take 5 years. I don't know, but I think we're going to see adult use in this hearing that's coming up will go under Schedule 3. And then I think people will get used to cannabis, and then the studies will come in, and we've been doing it in California for 30 years and now 45 other states, and hemp, which is cannabis, and the rest of them and all the above. And nobody's been able to find a trend that really is concerning. Teen use doesn't go up. Car accidents don't go up. If anything, alcohol and tobacco decrease. And then all the other things I just mentioned happen. So I'm pretty sure cannabis makes the world a better place. It doesn't mean that no problems happen, but the question isn't, do no problems happen? The question is it a net benefit? And the answer to that, I think pretty clearly is yes. So I think more cannabinoids in the world make the world a better place. And the truth happens eventually. So that's eventually what we'll see.
Amen.
I heard you just slide in there that you think that adult use will come under Schedule 3 in the hearings that are starting next week.
Yeah, I mean, the government of the mass.
Then why did you deconsolidate the business if you're confident that adult use will come under Schedule 3?
Part of our
Hawkeye.
deconsolidation is as soon as that happens, it snaps back in. So what it does is it decouples us from the timeline, and it means that I can watch with interest, but not with vulnerability. And if and when that happens, then the pieces just snap back together. I think the government can be a master of intellectual inconsistency, but I see no way that you could rationally look at where we're at and have a different answer come out of that hearing. So that's what I think is going to happen.
Yeah. Well, shoot, we talked longer than we said we were going to keep you. So I guess it's time to wrap. It's time for our last call. So, Graham, this is your chance. Final message for the listeners, advice, call to action, closing thought for our audience.
Keep on pushing. If you're in the industry, don't give up. We're closer than we've ever been. Cannabis makes the world a better place. So if you're working on it, you're helping things. We're certainly not giving up. 10 years in the glass house. I think I started cannabis when I was selling weed as a sophomore in high school. So I've got 30 years in the industry. We got big by starting small. We got an amazing team. They put passion and love into what they do. Excited for them to see the rewards, excited for the world to get access to the great weed that we grow here in California. I think we really are making the world a better place. So if you're fighting the fight, keep it up. And if you're a consumer, the world's going to get even better. So stick around.
Keep on pushing. Amazing. Graham Farrar, Glass House Brands. Thanks for spending the last hour with us.
Yeah. Thanks for having
Thank
me.
you so much.
All right. We'll talk to you soon. What do you think, folks? Pretty awesome. You can put all your money on interstate commerce. I love that bet. All right. Thank you to our teams at Vertosa and Wolf Meyer, and of course, our producer, Eric Rossetti. If you've enjoyed this episode, please share, like, review, do all the things wherever you listen to your podcasts. Thanks for listening. And as always, folks, stay curious, stay informed, and most importantly, keep your spirits high. Until next time, that's the show.